Sunlight is essential to our ecosystem. It allows plants to develop, as well as the majority of animals to see, and therefore to eat, drink, but also to learn and have fun. Aiming at extending all these activities when the sunlight does not reach, man has never stopped his quest to tame light. Indeed, what would have become of us without the possibility of lighting up in the night? I mean, no more summer evenings by a fire, and sadly, no more Christmas evenings under the dim light of garlands. Motivated by this need, inventors, researchers, and engineers have created over the years many lighting technologies. After candles and compact fluorescence tubes, among others, the latest flagship invention of modern lighting, which is also closely linked to the 2014 Nobel Prize in Physics, is the white LED. These devices, more robust and more economical than their predecessors, are now used in the vast majority of car headlights, smartphone flashes, and also enables to light up many homes, roads, and hospitals. However, many technological barriers must always be removed to obtain more responsible, healthier, and more efficient lighting. Our work at the Institute of Material Science of Seville is part of this research dynamic. In the multifunctional optical materials group, our job is to design new materials for electron and light production of tomorrow. Personally, I am deeply interested in persistent luminescence materials. You know, these are the materials that make the stars on your ceiling shine at night. At least they are on mine. These are also the key component of the board on which I was writing in the beginning of the video. To understand our research activities, please follow me. I will teach you the principle of these materials. Light, a key element in our discussion, can be seen as made up of small particles of energy called photons. The visible part, here we say spectrum, ranges from violet, where photons are most energetic, to red, where they are least. Beyond these limits, higher and lower energy photons exist. We call them respectively UV and infrared, but they are not perceived by human eyes. When photons come into contact with matter, several fates are available to them. Depending on their energy and on the type of material, they may be reflected, such as light in a mirror, transmitted, as when visible photons enter in contact with a glass window, or absorbed. It is the absorption of photons of specific ranges that gives colors to objects. Take an orange, for example. Its color comes from the absorption of blue and green photons by carotenes, leaving only yellow and red photons to escape and reach your eyes. When a photon is absorbed by matter, it transfers its energy to it. Depending on the material, the transferred energy will be able to trigger many processes, such as chemical reactions or the generation of electricity. In the particular case of luminescent materials, when a photon is absorbed by the material, the energy transferred to the material will be used for the production or emission of another photon. Generally, during this transfer process, some energy is lost. That's why if my material absorbs a blue photon, it will not be able to emit a blue photon, but also only photons with lower energy. In this case, green. Hopefully, if we want to have materials that emit other color, we can play on the structure or the composition of our material. For instance, if I replace here my green atom by a red atom, like this, my material will not be able to absorb blue light and neither to emit green light, but instead it will probably be able to absorb yellow photon and to emit a red photon. In the lab, that's how we change the color of materials. We play on the structures and composition of material to be able to have material that emit in the whole visible range and beyond. Another interesting thing is that we can obtain really different optical properties if we continue to play even more with the structure and composition of the material. For instance, if we introduce small irregularities in the material, we can obtain what we call traps. These traps can be seen as battery or reservoirs. Indeed, when a photon will be absorbed, part of the energy will be used to emit the red photon, but another part of the energy will be stored in this reservoir or trap. What is really interesting is that this will hamper the photon emission. And finally, when we switch off the light, the reservoir is completely filled and can transfer its energy back to the emitting atom, and you will see a delayed emission. And that's what we call persistent luminescence. And that's what you see when you look at your stars shining on your ceilings, or what you see on the board on which I was working.
Now that you know what is persistent luminescence and that you are as convinced of its beauty as I am, can you think of some applications of such materials? They are now being used as intelligent markings on roads or cycling paths. There, they allow you to find your way around at night. This application is also of great prospects with the increasing amount of autonomous cars and transports. But with a little more imagination, other very technical applications could benefit from novel materials with persistent luminescence. For instance, they can be used as biological markers to detect cancer. But they also can be used to produce anti-counterfeiting markers. Let's focus on this last application. Well, you probably know anti-counterfeiting markers as secret inks, right? They are used on builds or pieces of art to recognize the genuine from the fake. To conceive persistent luminescence materials for really efficient secret inks, some prerequisites must be met. First, it must be able to be revealed when applying a specific stimulus to make it more difficult to reproduce. Then, the secret ink must be invisible to the naked eye. Let's take the example of the persistent board. In the dark, I can reveal the material with a blue LED and write the word secret, for instance, that appears in green. Now, if I try to write with a red LED, nothing appears. That makes my material really difficult to reproduce. The problem with the board is that it's not really secret, as it's really big and it can be seen under daylight. Therefore, we needed to accept the challenge of preparing persistent luminescence nanoparticles to take the opportunity of their really small size to develop scattering-free materials, that is to say, transparent.
And here is where I come in. I use innovative synthesis strategies to elaborate nanoparticles. For instance, I put here solution in a microwave reactor to make them react at high temperature. I typically elaborate materials with a small amount, or we say doping amounts, of chromium to have red emission and cerium to have green to yellow emission. Once I obtain my nanoparticles, I process them as thin films using, for instance, the spin coating method. And you can see that once they are processed as thin films, they are completely transparent as requested from the Secret Inks applications. This is the place where I can check the properties of my nanomaterials. First, I put my transparent thin films in the apparatus. Then, from that part, I can excite my material. I can choose whatever light I want to excite my material. And here, I can record the light emitted from my material. I can select also whatever wavelength I want to see. Finally, this is the place where I can find out if my material have the required properties for suitable secret inks. If not, I can change my composition as I showed you before. An amazing characteristic of the nano world is that materials and particles are so small that they are strongly influenced by their environment. It means that photon absorption and photon emission can be modified by playing with the particle surrounding. And this is our main objective working on the project funded by the European Research Council named Nanophone. Here, we would like to combine our persistent luminescence nanoparticles with devised photonic environment to obtain yet unexplored properties. Finally, I would like to thank all the members of the MOM group who helped me with the smooth running of the project, and above all, thank you for watching.